Today, the Tacoma gets hooked up with a new bumper and winch. Welcome back everyone. I hope you guys are all staying healthy and safe. Now over the past few months I've found myself in a few situations where having a front winch would have been very helpful, and I have been shopping around and looking for a good solution for the front, and I've considered a lot of winch mount front bumpers here, full bumpers, some of these hybrid or low profile ones. Also I've looked at just doing a hidden winch mount, and I decided to go with this BodyArmor HiLine Series front bumper. Now this is a steel bumper. It does have a little pre-runner guard, as you guys can see. Aside from being a winch mount bumper, it also has a little provision for a 20-inch light bar, which I did end up getting a BodyArmor one. Now what I'm going to be doing with that light bar is I'm actually going to wrap that glass in a yellow LaminX just to kind of make it match the rest of the truck. Now for the winch, there's a lot of options on the market, and I decided to go with the Warn. In my opinion, they are the industry standard when it comes to winches, and I've gone with the EVO 10S, which is the 10K winch with a synthetic line. Now this should be adequate for anything that I might need to pull myself out of or pulling someone else out of as well. And then finally up front, we're going to be using a Factor55 Flatlink, and I decided to go with the black. I think this is going to look really nice, just having a completely blacked out look up front. I did order a Hawse Fairlead for the bumper from BodyArmor, but the Warn actually comes with one, so I'm just going to use that. Now once I have the winch and the light bar assembled to the bumper, we'll throw this on a scale just to see exactly how much extra weight we're adding to the front of the truck. And without talking too much, let's get into the install. All right, the first thing we'll do is pull the grill off. As you guys know, it's just two 10mm bolts up top and two little clips that we pull out. I do have the TSS sensor, so we'll unplug that along with the little LED lights. Now, if you guys do want an in-depth video on how to install, replace, and get a new grill for your Tacoma, I will link to that video somewhere below. But let's pull this guy off real quick. All right, now we have the grill off. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out this little plastic piece right here from the front bumper. One thing I do want to mention is that the BodyArmor instructions are pretty crappy and they don't really make much sense to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start pulling stuff off until we get access to the crash beam, and we'll pull it off, and then that should be it. Also, I do see in the instructions that they want us to completely remove the complete front bumper. I'm going to try not to do that just to save time. Essentially, I'm just gonna pull out this rubber piece. We're gonna cut the bumper right here where we need to. At that point, I'll remove the Cavalry raised grill light that we have here. Theoretically, I could reuse this with the BodyArmor bumper, but I think it's just gonna be overkill with the lights. So we'll pull this off, and I might give this away to one of you guys later on down the line. Okay, so first up, let's pull this guy off. I'm just gonna use the panel removal tool, and we'll just start here in the bottom. And these are just being held on by clips. I'm just gonna pull it off. I'm not gonna worry about breaking it because I will be cutting this piece off anyway. So let's just pull this off. There we go. Next up, same thing with this little plastic piece. It's just being held on by clips, so we should be able to just push those clips in and pull it straight out. Okay, next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the Cavalry raised light bar. I'm not going to record this step as most of you guys will not have this, so I'm going to pull this off real quick. And then next up, what we'll do is I'm just going to go through and cut this bumper right here, because we actually have to cut this from this edge in about 20mm, so all the way across. So let me pull this light off and then we'll cut. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to trim this bumper here. Essentially, I believe by trimming this, I should be able to pull the bumper beam out because it'll give us enough space. So what we need to do is from this edge here, we need to mark 20mm up, or 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to mark all the way across down to here to follow this line. And we're just going to cut this using an oscillating tool. So first up, let's go ahead and mask this up, and then we'll go through, measure out, and mark the 20 millimeters. And then we'll go through and measure 3/4 of an inch. Again, we're going to do it from this lip right here, from this edge, going up. So 3/4 of an inch or 20 millimeters. Okay, perfect. So now I've got this measured out. It's 20 millimeters from the front lip right here going in. Over here, rather than doing 20 millimeters and then having kind of like a weird like curve, I'm gonna go straight from here all the way down. I'm gonna cut it all the way down here. So let's just do that real quick. And I am using an oscillating tool. I highly recommend using these whenever you're cutting like body panels. I got this one from Harbor Freight. I think it was like 30 bucks, so let's give it a shot, see how it works. All right, now that we have the bumper cut, I mean, this looks pretty clean. We'll clean this up a little bit. The oscillating tool kind of messed up right here, aka I messed up. That's not a problem. One thing we need to do next is at the bottom right here on both sides, so one on each side, there's a 10 millimeter bolt. So we're going to pull those bolts out and then also remove the little clips that are holding essentially this piece on. So once we do that, we'll be able to drop the bumper down, well, the cutoff piece, and then at that point, we should be able to remove the 3 bolts on each side holding the bumper beam on and just pull the OEM bumper off. So let's do that real quick. All right, now this is the 10 millimeter bolt we have to remove on each side. There we go. And then from the inside, we're going to push this clip out this way, and then this puppy should just fall down. All right, so we got the bumper cut, we got those bolts out. Now this should just come out. Let's see what's getting hung up on here. Oh, looks like we missed a 10 millimeter bolt. So there's actually 3 10 millimeter bolts, one in the middle as well. So let's zip that guy off. Oh, it looks like there's 4 10 millimeter bolts. There we go. Alright, so next up what we're going to do is we're going to remove these 3 14 millimeter bolts off the little crash beam. Essentially there's 3 on each side. I'm not sure if you guys can see them here, but you got 1 right here and then 2 on the other side back here. So we're going to remove those from each side, and then the bumper beam should just come out. And I'm essentially just going to reach through from the bottom right here to reach these guys with a socket. So there's 2 on the outside, 1 on the inside. So let me zip those off, and then this should come right off. Okay, real quickly, we're going to pull out these 14 millimeter nuts, which are holding the crash beam on. And also one of the nice things about me cutting the bumper that I just realized is the fact that I can actually access these 2 bolts here very easily. Okay, next up we'll go through and repeat the process on the other side, and then we should be able to just pull the bumper beam off. Alright, so I've got those 3 bolts out. However, there's too much tension on this crossbar still to actually pull it out. And I just realized that there's actually 3 more bolts right here on the front side, which actually separates the crossbar from the mounts. So I'm just going to go ahead and loosen these and pull these nuts out. I'm going to assume that that's actually going to let us, it's going to essentially release all the tension, and we'll be able to just pull this off in 2 pieces. So let's go ahead and pull these bolts off too. And you can honestly probably do these first and then do the other one second. That'll make it even easier than the way I just did it. All right, now we got the bolts out. Let's give it a shot. And there we have it. Next up, we're going to remove this tow hook right here. And essentially looks like that's being held on by 2 17 millimeter bolts. So let's go and zip those off real quick. Alrighty, now we got the cross beam out of the way. The next thing we need to do is take the little oil cooler right here and we have to move it towards the back. Essentially, this is being held on by 2 bolts on these little brackets. So there's one here and then one here as well. Now the BodyArmor kit does come with these little brackets, which we are going to use to relocate the oil cooler, just to give us a little bit more clearance for the winch and also the bumper. The way this is going to sit is like so. So essentially through this little hole right here, this is where the factory bolt is going to go. And it's going to sit like this to where we're essentially going to be pushing the oil cooler back. And I am using this little hex nut on here as well, which is provided to move it up as well. So I'll do that real quick. This might be a little bit hard to shoot on film just because it's so tight, but I'll show you guys what the end result looks like. So let's do that real quick. And just to show you guys from the top which bolts we're working with. So this is the one on the left side. And then that's the one right there on the right side, the second from the right. So let's do that real quick. And then also real quick, in order to move that oil cooler on the passenger side, behind this little splash guard, we'll have to remove this little 12mm bolt. So make sure you do that if it's not budging. So let's get it done. Alrighty, now we got the oil cooler relocated. We got the little brackets on, and then just show you guys here. Essentially, remember the little flat spot on the front, and then it just pushes it towards the back and the top. There we go, looking good. Next up, let's throw up the bumper up on here to make sure that our bumper cut is good. And then after that, we'll be ready to start assembling the winch onto the bumper and the light bar. So let's test fit real quick. Now all we want to make sure here is that the cut is good. I'm just going to put these over the bolts. All right, now that I'm looking at this here, looks like I'm going to have to actually trim the bumper on the top a little bit more, specifically around here and also around here, just to make it fit a little bit better. So that's not a big deal. Again, it's always better to, when your first time, cut a little bit short, and then you can always cut more. So let me just mark this real quick. We'll go through, cut this, and then we should be all good. There we go. All right, perfect. Now that's looking a lot better. Next up, let's pull this off. I'm going to clean up my little cuts. We'll throw the little weather stripping on here just to make this look nice and clean. And then after that, let's work on assembling the bumper with the winch and the lights. All right, so we got the cuts all cleaned up. Well, pretty cleaned up. Next up, we're going to take this little, we'll call it just weather stripping, and we're going to attach it to our little cut line. This will make it look a lot cleaner. I'm just going to start down here, sliding it on. See, this way, even if your cuts look like crap, this covers it up. And there we have it. Our crappy cut line looks a little bit less crappy. Next up, let's work on the bumper, throwing the winch on it and the light. First up, we're going to prepare the LED light bar. Now this is the BodyArmor 20-inch light bar that I ordered with the bumper. So I'm going to pull this guy off. And I'm going to be using some LaminX yellow film. I just got this off of Amazon. Now it's like 40 degrees in my garage, maybe 30, so we're going to warm this up a little bit, make it a little bit easier. Make sure this is actually going to fit. I think we'll be good. And there we have it. This is ready to be thrown onto the bumper. I mean, this is also a really easy and cheap way for you guys to switch up your light bar colors. I mean, they make the stuff in all these colors. So, you know, I know there's a lot of manufacturers, they make specific light bars, which are, you know, different colors with different lens on it. I feel like if you just buy a white light, clear light, and then you can just switch out your little film here for 20 bucks, I think it's definitely worth it. Next up, let's throw this on the bumper. Okay, next up we're going to attach the light bar to the bumper. Now the light bar does come with its own little hardware and these brackets. We're not going to use the brackets, however we will use the bolts. Put that to the side. Now the bumper also came with these little L brackets. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to attach the L brackets here like so and onto the light bar. I mean, this is very straightforward. Then we're going to line it up and we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and attach this real quick. Okay, next up we're just going to put this guy into place and use the provided hardware. Use a little hex bolt, washer, throw it in, and again washer and your little hex nut. Okay, now that we have everything into place, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is complete centered. So, okay, that looks pretty centered on the other side. So next up, we'll just go through and tighten everything down, and then we'll also adjust essentially the height of the light bar as well. Now, before I tighten everything down completely, I'm just going to check my orientation again and make sure everything is nice and center. And there we have it, looking pretty good. I'm gonna go through and tighten everything down. Next up, let's work on the winch. Now, the first thing we're gonna do is attach the Hawse Fairlead onto the bumper. Now, I did order me a BodyArmor one that came with the bumper. However, Warn does provide this one, and I like the way this one looks better. So we're gonna attach this guy. Essentially, you're going to use the provided hardware. You're gonna use the bolt, washer, drive it through. Like that. And on the back side, we're going to use this provided locking washer and this provided nut. Now, I do wish that these bolts were black, but you know, it is what it is. And then just tighten it down. Okay, perfect. Next up, let's get the winch ready. Next up, what we need to do is we need to take the negative cable that's provided and attach it to the actual winch, and on the back side you guys are gonna have these 3 plugs and then a little negative terminal right here. It's a 13 millimeters, so we're just gonna screw that one off and attach this negative battery terminal. Perfect, now we have the cable on here. Next up, we're ready to attach the winch to the actual bumper. Now, this is a very simple process. The winch will come with these little blocks right here. Essentially, we're gonna slide these guys in right here, all 4. Then what we need to do is we need to align the winch with the bumper and just drive these bolts right here through the bottom and into the winch itself. So we're gonna do that real quick. Just as a reminder, from the bottom, I'm going to be using these shorter bolts. You're essentially going to use a washer and then a little locking washer. It's going to go through here and into this right here. Also, make sure when you guys are doing this that you do have the right orientation. So this right here is the back of the winch. This needs to be pointed towards the back. So wish me luck. Let's get this done real quick. And there we have it. We've got the winch mounted up onto the bumper. It's nicely secure. We have our negative terminal, positive. One thing I do want to mention that with the Warn EVO VR10S, so we have the ability of controlling this wirelessly. Also, you do have the ability of actually hooking this up to the winch and controlling it, you know, for like short range and whatnot, or if your battery inside your little controller does die on the trailers. Essentially, all you have to do to hook this up is on top of the winch right here, you've got this little rubber plug. Remove it and you just plug it in right here. So, and we should be able to access this also once the bumper is on the rig, so that'll be really nice and convenient. And then also as far as the clutch on it, so if you do want to just free spool this, you just open that up right there and then you can essentially pull your line out and then you lock it up right there. Very simple to use, very easy. Next up, we have to battle with getting this onto the truck. Now this bumper with the winch and the light bar and everything weighs about 110 pounds, so I'm gonna have to get creative. BodyArmor and Warn, they recommend that you have at least 3 people doing this. I'm here by myself, so let's give it a shot. Okay, so I'm gonna try to use a floor jack to lift this into place. I don't know if this is gonna work. I may have to add some 2x4s to elevate it more. I did just weigh the bumper with the winch and everything, and we're looking at exactly 100 pounds. So if you guys are wondering, that's how much this is going to add to the front of our Tacoma. Alright, now that we have the bumper in place, we're going to go through and tighten these 3 nuts right here on both sides. And then we're going to take this really long bolt right here, and we're going to attach the provided nut on the other side and tighten that down. The way we're going to access that is just by essentially going from the bottom or the inner like fender wall and just remove the little splash guard right here on the side, or you can just do it through the bottom right here. Either way will work. So I'm gonna go through and do that and tighten everything down, and then we'll work on the wiring for the winch. All right, we've got all the bolts tied down. Bumper is looking good. Now for the wiring for the winch, it's extremely simple. All you have to do is take your red cable, hook it up to the battery, and then with your black, you can either do it on the battery or just on your chassis for the ground. That's exactly what I did. It took about 1 minute. Now let's see if it works. I've got the remote here. I do have it plugged in, and as you guys can see on the left side, it is on the wires, so let's give it a shot. And looks like we are good to go. Next up, I'm gonna button everything up and we'll throw on the Factor55 Flatlink. All right, so finally we're going to install our Factor55 Flatlink. Very simple process. You just pull the pin from in here. Pull the big pin out, slides through, drop your pin back in, and then put your little security pin back in, and you are all done. There we have it. So once we have the Flatlink on the cable, I'm going to take a little remote control. We're going to switch it to wireless mode. And there we go. Now that's going to sit like that. And we are all done with the install. There we have it, all done. Now this was a relatively simple install, a lot simpler than I thought it would be. It took me about 4 hours with shooting the video. Now I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, drop me a like below. Also, I will drop the links below to where I got all the parts for this. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see ya.